If you were a CNN propagandist and one of the most well-known figures in all of American government agreed to come on your show, what do you think you'd talk about? Would it be inflation or student protests, wars all over the world, American families struggling to afford groceries, maybe the humanitarian crisis that created the world's most dangerous land migration in all of human history? Would you talk about those things, or would you spend your time just banging them over the head with the most pressing question in all of American politics? Will Republicans swear an oath to accept the outcome of November's elections no matter what? I mean, come on. And if you watch this entire interview, it's up on Ted Cruz's channel. It's a crusher. It is a crusher. The whole thing is great, but I want to focus on this election angle because every single network is beating the same ridiculous drum.
In 2024, will you certify the election results? Do you plan to object, or will you accept the results regardless of who wins the election?
So, Caitlyn, I got to say, I think that's actually a ridiculous question.
It's a yes or no question, though.
No, it's not. Let me explain why it's a ridiculous question. It's not a question. You've ever asked a Democrat that?
Of course.
What Democrat?
But what Democrats?
But hold on a second. What Democrats challenge it?
What Democrats? I know. I've been down this road many times.
But
no Democrat. You cannot compare the two situations. We have talked about that. We've seen the audio of that when they protested on the Senate floor.
Hold on a second.
But has you ever had a sitting president who refused to facilitate the peaceful transition of power, refused to acknowledge that his successor won the presidency?
So, A, we did have a peaceful transfer of power. I was there on January 20th. I was there on the swearing in.
Barely.
B, if you look at in 2000, Democrats went to the Senate, or 2001, Democrats went to the Senate floor and objected to George W. Bush. In 2004, they went and objected.
And what did the president do?
In 2016, Democrats went and objected to Donald Trump. And so... Look,
and what happened in 2016? Because I remember a guy named Joe Biden was vice president, and he went to the Senate floor and certified the votes.
So do you
Am I wrong?
So you're asking, will you promise no matter what to agree an election is illegitimate regardless of what happens?
Here's the problem with this argument, man. She acts like she's got this some sort of never heard before gotcha. You know, Vice President Biden certified the election over the complaints of his party. Here's the problem with that. So did Mike Pence. I mean, it's the exact same situation. And to her point about, not being able to compare Democrats contesting elections with Republicans, I mean, why? Why can you not compare them? The Democrats literally ran commercials trying to manipulate the state's electors to vote to certify for Hillary or whatever. I mean, it's insane. But to this point, there is no difference here. When Trump won, Biden certified the election over his party objections in the face of insane Antifa political violence. There is absolutely no difference, And this is not the gotcha that this poor girl thinks that it is.
And that would be an absurd thing to claim. Like, we have an entire election law system that people challenge elections. Elections get overturned. Voter fraud gets proven. That happens all the time. And the media engages in this weird game post Donald Trump that you insist no voter fraud has ever existed. Why does every state have laws in place to challenge voter fraud if it occurs?
The media
Why do you have election challenges?
This isn't a game. There was no widespread voter fraud.
You only ask Republicans that. Because
it was Republicans who tried to block the transition of power. You have to acknowledge that. So we've never seen it on a scale of what happened in 2020, and we've never seen the president refuse. He wouldn't even let Joe Biden get classified briefings at the beginning. I recall that. So my question for you again. Free and fair election, will you accept the results regardless of who wins?
Look, if the Democrats win, I will accept the result, but I'm not going to ignore fraud regardless of what happens.
But was there fraud in 2020?
Of course there was fraud in 2020.
No, there wasn't, and you still objected.
You know for a fact there was zero voter fraud. Really? What's your basis for that? Show me your evidence.
We've spoken with Governor Kemp. They did 3 hand recounts in the state of Georgia. The director of CISA said that it was the safest, most legitimate election.
But you're saying zero voter fraud occurred. That's what you just said.
Nothing that would have changed the outcome of that election.
Okay, but that's a different statement.
But no, it's not. Because if it wouldn't have changed
you said there was no voter fraud.
There was no voter.
Do you think that these people ever even hear themselves talk? She's like, but the government said it was the safest and most secure election in American history. Obviously, that's just insane. And Caitlyn Collins is an obvious crazy person. There is absolutely no way that she can actually believe this stuff. I mean, and he jumps on her. He jumps on her because he's absolutely right. She has no idea what she's talking about. She says, this is not a game. But how do we go from 2016, Russia hacked and abused and colluded to undermine the U.S. elections, to 2020, the most secure and safe in the history of historical Democrat fantasies. And now again, in 2024, they're already starting to plant the seeds of Russia or China or some other boogeyman evil country intervention to help Trump, as if any enemy nation in the world would want to undermine Joe Biden. Every enemy wants Joe Biden to remain president for the next 100 years, if they can. But it's just crazy, man. That's all this is to these people. It is a game to these state-approved propagandists. I mean, that's the only way you would ever waste your time asking a senator such a stupid and ridiculous question. They know what he's going to say, and they're going to try and smear him as some sort of election denier, which, of course, that's their own made-up fantasy term anyway.
Voter fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election, and you know that, Senator.
So what I know is that what I stood on the Senate floor and objected, what I called for, I'll tell you, I wrestled with what to do in that circumstance. And the reason I wrestled with it is because I think there was significant voter fraud in 2020. And
you wanted the 10-day commission, I know, but was there voter fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election? But do you know why I wanted a
10-day commission? Because I tried to look, I'm a Supreme Court litigator. I argue cases in front of the Supreme Court.
I know.
I tried to look through history and precedent, and the best precedent I could find was the election of 1876. 1876 was between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. And what happened there were serious allegations of voter fraud, and Congress didn't throw its hands up and say, you know what? CNN demanded that I accept the results no matter what, so ignore the fraud. I got to go. But hold on. What did Congress do in 1876?
How did the president handle it?
What did Congress do in 1876?
Senator, I have to know, you can't answer yes or no to this question.
I'm asking a question. What did Congress do in 1876?
You can't answer yes or no to this question. And Republicans,
can you answer my question? Why are you refusing to answer my question?
I'm conducting the interview with all due respect, Senator. And let me ask you, it's Republicans have twisted themselves in knots. It's just a yes or no question.
I'm not twisting myself. I'm answering your question. You just don't like my answer.
And what's your answer? Is it yes or is it no?
So in 1876, what Congress did is it appointed an election commission. It consisted of 15 people. 5 House members, 5 senators, 5 Supreme Court justices. The Election Commission was charged with studying the evidence and making a determination of what voter fraud occurred, and that determined the winner. And what I called for in 2020 was to do the same thing, appoint an election commission, and 11 senators joined me.
Senator, with all due respect, after it had been thrown out of many courts, after the Attorney General Bill Barr, because there was no basis for those court cases.
No, so that's actually
Senator,
not.
With all due respect,
you asked me a question. Do you want me to answer it?
And you didn't answer the question.
Yes, I did.
Court cases were thrown out.
Hold on a second.
The Attorney General said there was no widespread fraud. You're not clearly answering the question. I want to thank you for that.
What question am I not? I'm answering every question. I think the country would have been a lot better off with a determination of what evidence of voter fraud there was that occurred, and instead the media didn't want to hear it and insists voter fraud never occurs. You ought to go back and look at the Carter-Baker Commission.
It was the Attorney General, and my question was about 2024.
It was the media. It was CNN that relentlessly pushed that propaganda. And by the way, never holds.
That there was no widespread fraud in the election?
That voter fraud doesn't exist, and anyone who says it does is wearing a tinfoil hat. That is propaganda. And by the way, you never asked Hillary Clinton this. You never asked Stacey Abrams this. You never asked Al Gore this.
With all due respect,
and every
Senator,
one of them said the Republicans who won were illegitimate.
I haven't had any of them on my show. We'll talk to them. But I don't remember there being a president who was refusing to turn over the transition of power and facilitated it.
And Trump didn't either. Joe
My
Biden
question was about
became
2024. You did not answer it.
Let me say a final
Senator
point
Ted
for you.
Cruz,
You
we're out
said
of
they
time.
haven't come.
Thank you very much,
My
Senator Ted
opponent, Colin
Cruz.
Allred, hasn't either. He ought to come to your show.
Senator Ted Cruz, no answer to that question. Thank you very much.
She just keeps repeating it over again. I kept expecting Cruz to be like, you're a nasty, nasty woman. But he did answer the question. He answered it a couple different ways, actually. She just didn't like his answer. The best part is when she wades into the waters that she absolutely does not understand. She tries to go with the tired old liberal claim that it was kicked out of every court because there was no evidence or no standing. And they prey on these victims of their audience, man. They lead these poor victims to believe that the courts actually adjudicated the election and determined something that could not be any farther from the truth. It's not even close. I mean, it's not even remotely close to true. But like any good liberal lie, you just say it enough times, you get enough of your unwitting accomplices to repeat it and share it, and before long, it becomes truth. And I like Ted Cruz. I've always liked Ted Cruz, and he's always been pretty tough and always, he's always there to stand his ground, but he's stepping it up lately, man. And he's not the polite pushover that a lot of Republicans have been programmed to be. We were accustomed to seeing that. But here's what I keep thinking when I watch these things. This is just another narrative that I think they take too far on the left, and I cannot imagine that it doesn't backfire. If everything is to be trusted, then why can it not be questioned? If the truth is the truth, then there are no questions that become a problem, right? And another thing I think when I watch this stuff, how amazing is it going to be when Donald Trump wins and these people start playing the Russia sequel against the backdrop of all these clips of them demanding that we trust the election no matter what. But anyway, that's just my take, man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next.